Hello, Charles Fockaert on September 28th, 2018, and I welcome all of you. Thank you for supporting this channel. This is On the Road with Charles Fockaert, sometimes off the road, sometimes on the side of the road, sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I don't know. Last video, I was at the crater of the moon, and I told you about what I got all ready to go, packed everything all up, got in on the seat, turned the engine over. Pumped the gas a couple, 3-4 times. This is a big old V8, needs gas to get her going in the morning, like caffeine. Pumped the gas 3 or 4 times, turned the engine over, wasn't going to start yet, needed more fuel, pumped the gas again, turned the key over again, and guess what? Nothing. So I had no idea, except I thought it was the key. The key was bad, the ignition switch was bad. So I already talked about all that. But so I called my buddy, went up and called my buddy that I met down there in Pioche, and he was nice enough to say, I'm going to come out. Picked up the new switch, new ignition key, all that down there at the auto store. By the way, I'm a member of the NAA. The NAA is the Napa Auto Anonymous. Hi, I'm Charles Fockaert, and I'm a Napa Auto Parts addict. Seems like I can't go anywhere without having to buy a part at Napa. So I got some new parts at Napa. He got some new parts for me at Napa and drove all the way up there. Nice guy. That's over a 2-hour drive. He drives up there. I'm sitting there at the old number 12 space in the crater of the moon. Getting to be pretty well known up there at the front office. And he drives up, and I was so happy to see him, buddy. He's a guy on the mechanic on the white horse. He shows up. And we say hi, haven't seen you in a while, how's it going, buddy, and all that stuff. So he gets in there, and we start taking everything apart, and you got to get the little screw. If you ever done this before, you put the key in the ignition, and there's this little hole, and you're supposed to be able to pull. I tried to do all that, and it wouldn't come out. But he said you got to have the key in exactly the same right spot, and I didn't know that. I tried, but anyway, that's what a mechanic's for, man. I'm learning about just. I've taken those out before, and it wasn't a big deal, but this one, I don't know. So anyway, it wouldn't have done any good anyway because I didn't have the part. So anyway, he's got the part, and we put it all, together. It doesn't take that long, maybe half an hour, a little more. And we finally get her all in there, and I got the doghouse off, and we got everything exposed. The front's open, and everybody else in their new vehicles are all leaving, and we're there, and put it all together. Thought, wow, this is cool. Didn't take that long. Put the key in, turn the key, and guess what? Nothing. So, to say the least, a little bit discouraged, a little bit disappointed. Not discouraged, but we're having a good time laughing and everything. Hey, it's only $7.50 a night up there for me. Doesn't matter to me. But if we got it done, right away, well, whatever. But anyway, so we got another problem. And he doesn't know what it is either yet. But let me get a tool here. I want to show you that if you don't have one of these tools and you're an automotive guy and you're working on your car, you got to have one of these tools. So, let me get that for you. Took me a while, but here it is. I finally found it buried on the bottom of my toolbox, or my tool bag now. Got rid of my other big toolbox. A little harder to find stuff, but hey, got to have one of these. This is a cheapo. My buddy, the mechanic, he's got one of them snap-on ones with the long coil wire and the fancy dancy. So we started using this, and you got to understand here, there's two systems in a RV, at least there is in this one, and most RVs. There's the engine electrical, runs off the engine battery and the alternator, and then there's the house battery. The engine compartment is 12 volt. The RV part, the house, the cabin part, the mobile, which is now mostly immobile quite often. So we got the immobile cabin, house, 12 volt, and also 110, 120, and they go back and forth depending on what you're using. Plus, I got the power generator back there running right now, and we'll get into that in a minute. Excuse me. So anyway, I could tell he's a little surprised, and I thought it was just going to be a quick fix and we could go home. But that ain't the way it is. We had to figure out that for some reason there wasn't power getting to the starter motor from the battery through the ignition switch. And so we started taking everything apart, and we had to find out where the power was, that comes to the ignition switch, and it's up on the first place we looked, of course, was the fuse, and I checked those a long time ago. There is no fuse on the ignition switch in this vehicle, but there's a box behind the fuse box, or way up there in the dashboard. I mean, you got to be a contortionist and to work on a lot of parts of this vehicle and a lot of aspects of this vehicle. So we started to trace down these wires, and the long story short, and it took us another 2-3 hours minimum to figure out what was going on. And there's a battery isolator up underneath in the engine compartment, up on the firewall there, and a lot of wires run to that, because you're supposed to be able to charge the house batteries from the alternator when you're on the road and you're running. So your engine alternator can charge your house battery. That was the way it was originally set up back in 1977. And they work good. You're on the road, you can charge your house batteries. You don't have to use your generator, don't have to use the solar and all that. So, but that isolator, that battery isolator up underneath the dashboard there, it's got a bunch of wires coming into it from all over the place. I mean, my friend is very, very good. He's a very good mechanic, very systematic. He says all we got to do is use the tester and logic, and you follow from point to point until you find the break. Okay, so we got to deal with the house battery. We got to deal with the solenoid down below. We got to deal with the alternator. We got to deal with the starter. We got to deal with the battery isolator, and one by one we go through. And the long story short is, it was the battery isolator inside. There was a short. So once we figure that out using the old test light, and a lot of times you got to make sure you got a good ground. This is kind of a cheapie. I am going to go out and go get another better test battery with a longer alligator clip and a bigger wire and all that, like my friends. Not quite snap-on, but a little better. But anyway, we finally figured it out that it was a problem with the 40-year-old isolator. Surprise, surprise, right? But hey, it's pretty complicated electrical stuff, and I'm really glad he was here. It would have taken me quite a while, and maybe I would have never figured it out. I know a lot of things about a lot of things, but I don't know everything about everything. So anyway, between the two of us, and I got to give the majority of the help to him, the hand to him, we figured out it was the isolator. So we went around the isolator, made a couple pigtails, went around the isolator, got that all figured out, and finally said, Well, let's see if that's the problem. Put the key in, hook the battery back up. We had to disconnect the battery. I think we disconnected the battery. Yeah, I'm not sure. But anyway, make sure the battery's all hooked up. Put the key in. You got to disconnect the battery sometimes when you're working on some of this electrical to eliminate the problem. So hook everything all back up. Stick the old key in there. Turn her over, and it started right up. That was the time for a hallelujah. So we were happy campers. Happy campers. So put everything all back together again. I haven't paid for that day, and I said, hey, buddy, how about if I follow you back to where you live, which is in Glenn's Ferry, which is took us about 3 hours to get there. We stopped, had lunch I promised this guy, I said, man, whenever you want to go to Carl's Jr., he loves these Carl's Jr. Whoppers. For life, I'm buying you a Carl's Jr. Whopper. But anyway, this wasn't Carl's Jr., but I bought lunch, and I made it worth his while. A workman is worthy of his hire. It's not like I'm broke and I don't have any money and I can't pay him. So he needs some money. He's running a little short. So it was good. It was good for him, good for me. We got to see each other again. So we pack her all up. I got to back up a little bit. Pack her all up, and I happened to check the house battery, the house lights for the pump. I think it was the pump in the sink here. No power. No power. And that day also, or that night before, that morning, there was no propane. I think I mentioned this in the last one. So now I got one problem finished. I got one problem fixed. And the engine won't start. It's not, but now I fixed one problem, and we got two other problems. So like I said, I'm going to have to start calling this well, it wasn't immobile, just inconvenient. And I want to talk about inconvenience, but not on this video. But Americans are they're convenience oriented, and that's going to come back to bite us in the butt later. But so anyway, so I'm heading down the road, and I realize now I don't have propane coming out of the main tank, and I don't have power in the house. We didn't touch anything. I didn't touch anything. I didn't do anything different, and it's been working the whole time. But now, with this isolator problem, I don't have power in the house. So, yesterday, he brought me over here the other day. I forget what day it was, a couple days ago, Wednesday. And this is what, Friday. Yeah, Wednesday, he brought me over here to this Snake River access. And I'm parked here at Snake River. The Snake River is right to my north here. And I'm parked in a fishing access. You can stay here for a week and a half, no problem. And let me show you where I am, okay? So there's the old mobile cabin parked on top of a handicap slab. And they probably going to come bust me. But who in the heck's ever... I bet you this thing's never been used by handicapped people. But hey, that's what America's all about now. Doing things for all the minorities. And there we are. I'm parked there. And he came by yesterday. He came by yesterday morning, and well, what did we do yesterday? We went into town, and we got some more parts, and we went shopping. I got some food and all that stuff, because up there at Crater of the Moons, there's no shopping. We got some parts, and we spent all day here. We had a good time. First thing we worked on, it was the propane. I couldn't figure out why I didn't have propane out of the major tank. I have propane out of the small tank, but you can't put the small tank out there all the time, and the refrigerator doesn't run when you're running down the road. You're running on the big tank. Now, I know I filled up the big tank. I have a 20-gallon house tank. I filled it up in Kalispell, and it was less than 3 weeks ago. And I usually run about 5 gallons of fuel in good weather, and about 9 or 10 days, no problem. So it hasn't been a couple weeks now, and I should have plenty of fuel. And the gauge was showing more than half, less than 3/4. So I know I had plenty of fuel. But my buddy, he wants to tell me that the gauge is bad. You don't have fuel. I go, no. So we have our arguments, and he's pretty adamant, and I let him go on, and that's duck like water off a duck. So he kept telling me, and he was so upset with me that I couldn't see the obvious. And I said, well, wait a minute. This tank, the small tank, is hooked up through this new connection that I bought and a new regulator, and this small tank goes through that regulator. And he was telling me no it doesn't, and I'm saying yes it does. And I don't want to argue with this guy. He usually knows more than I do, but this time he didn't know more than I do, and that's a lesson to some of us. So I just patiently waited him out, and he was getting a little anyway. And then finally he began to see that, hey, maybe he was wrong. He didn't admit it, but anyway. So he's got this gauge. He's got all these tools that I don't have. He's got this gauge to test the pressure coming out of the tank. So we went back into town. I think we picked it up when we were there, and so we put that on there. And first of all, we took the. This is if you ever need this. If this ever happens to you, this is what I did. It's a 7/8 wrench, turned off the house tank, 7/8 wrench, reverse propane tank, propane fittings are all reverse thread, so it's not righty tighty, lefty loosey. It's the opposite. So you got to be careful. That catches me every once in a while. But anyway, we took that off, turned the propane on, and propane is liquid, but somehow it gets under pressure in there, and so it was coming out. Put the fitting back on, took off the other part, turned the gas on. So now we got propane coming out of there, and he's convinced now that that I got fuel in there and my gauge is working. So he hooks up. Oh, we did have to go back into town to get that gauge. He forgot it. So we went back into town. We got the gauge. He come back out, put that on there. He's, by the way, he's 6 miles away. And so we put that on there. And he got good pressure. He's supposed to be between 10 and 15. And I had 11.5. So, okay, put everything all back together. Blah, 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 blah. Put it all back together. Turn the gas on, the major tank, come back in here. Now I got propane. We didn't do anything. I mean, except what I just told you we did. But so there was something obviously in the line, in the little connection there. Anyway, propane's working again. Big tank. So, something else happened. Let me pause here for a minute, think about it. Oh, yeah, when I was coming back from the craters of the moon, my water temperature sending switch wasn't working. The wire disconnected somehow. And sure enough, pulled off the cover to the engine, and there's the wire. But this is very difficult to get to because it's on the driver's side. And he said, well, why didn't you put a new one in when you put the new head in? There's another space there to plug in a new water temperature sender switch. And I said, well, I was working with Mr. Toxic. And I didn't think about it because it was working. I should have changed it then. So anyway, today we're going to change that. Water temperature switch to the other side, easy to get to. We're going to put the proper connector on there and get that done. The vehicle starts up now, no problem whatsoever, but I still don't have power in the cabin. No power in the cabin except when I run the generator. And we isolated the engine battery from the house batteries here. The AGM, I bought those two AGM. I'm sitting right on top of them. They're inside here now. They're being charged up right now. But they're not discharging because there's no house power unless I have the generator going. So he's kind enough to come over today and we're gonna work on that, and hopefully we'll get that finished and completed and fixed. Now this is the stuff I was going to do when we got down to Arizona. We had a lot of time, but he's got not much to do right now. He's not where he's retired like I am, and he's willing to help, and he needs the money, and I'm happy to pay him. A workman is worthy of his hire. I'm very happy to pay him, and it'd be really nice to get this all done as much as possible, because when I get to Arizona, as the income comes in for my check, my benefit check for the hundreds of thousands of dollars the government took from me over my lifetime, they give it back to you a month at a time in an inflated currency, continually worth less currency. I'll be able to buy a complete 300 watt probably inverter and charge the batteries with this Arizona sun. So we're going to do all that, and I don't know if you can hear, but there's a train right here, and a lot of cars are going by here from Seattle, I guess, or Long Beach or wherever, and they're all night long they're running by, and I don't mind the sound at all. It doesn't bother me. And so we're going to work on that today. I don't know what you guys are doing, but I'm having a great time. I got Snake River property. I don't have to pay tax on it. I can stay here for probably 2 weeks, no problem. Then we're going to head south. Oh, by the way, I talked to my buddy Joe. He was in Winnemucca, headed back toward this area here, just outside of Boise. And we're going to get together tomorrow. So it'll be fun. I've never met Joe personally, but we're going to get together tomorrow, and it's going to be good. So it was good talking on my phone. But Joe, if you won't see this because I won't be able to upload it, but Joe, I'm looking forward to seeing you, buddy. And he wants to buy one of my rocket stoves, so I got an extra rocket stove here, and we're going to take care of that, and so that's that. That's the update on September 28th from On the Road with Charles Fockaert, or Off the Road, or on the Found on Road Dead. No, that's Ford. Found on Road Dead. This is a Chevy. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting this channel. May the grace of God, our Father Yahweh, the creator of the Snake River and the Salmon River and the creeks up there, and all the hot springs. Don't miss that hot spring in it's called Gold Bug Hot Springs in I can't remember the town, but it's on the map there on Highway 93 in the middle of Idaho. If you go by there, don't miss that. I regret the fact that I didn't take the time to go up there. But hey, might have been broke down. Instead of only 3 hours away from my buddy, it might have been 4.5 or 5 hours away. So thank you so much for your support, and may the grace of God, our Father Yahweh, like I said, may his grace be upon us all, for we most certainly need it. The phone's ringing. Gotta go. See ya.